In the annals of professional wrestling, few rivalries have ever carried the narrative weight or emotional resonance of CM Punk versus John Cena. Their saga isn't merely about championships or personal grudges. It is a chronicle of ideology, transformation, and the corrosive effect of longevity within a system designed to use people up and throw them away. At the center of it all lies the story of two men who once embodied diametrically opposed worldviews. One, a symbol of rebellion; the other, the face of corporate loyalty. But as time passed, roles shifted, intentions blurred, and identities collapsed into each other until neither could escape the truth that they had become what they once swore to destroy. The confrontation that awaits them in 2025 is not a rematch in the traditional sense. It is a reckoning, an elegy to the version of wrestling that once felt real, passionate, and unscripted. John Cena was never meant to be the cornerstone of the WWE empire. He arrived without the pedigree, the connections, or the mystique that defined so many others around him. Lesnar, Orton, and Batista were sculpted from the clay of Vince McMahon's vision, athletic marvels who fit the mold perfectly. Cena, on the other hand, was close to being discarded, a generic body lost in the developmental shuffle. It was only through a moment of improvisational brilliance, a backstage rap that caught the right attention, that Cena earned a stay of execution. From that moment on, he clawed for every inch of ground he gained. He wasn't a chosen one. He was a survivor of the system's indifference, rising through charisma, discipline, and an almost mechanical work ethic. Every autograph signed, every make-a-wish granted, every match wrestled like his last wasn't just a testament to fan service. It was a desperate assertion that he belonged. The rise of Cena came at a time when the company was struggling to define itself, post-Attitude Era. The edginess had been neutered in favor of PG-friendly narratives. Amidst this transformation, Cena became a figurehead, not just of WWE's brand, but of its values: hustle, loyalty, respect. But as he accumulated accolades, world titles, and global fame, something intangible began to erode. To the fans who once cheered his defiance in his debut against Kurt Angle, he had become a sanitized product. The rapper became a role model, and eventually a caricature of corporate perfection. And that's when CM Punk entered the scene, not as a direct challenger to Cena's throne, but as a mirror held up to his persona, reflecting the artifice that had come to define it. Punk's path was carved through hardship, determination, and a stubborn refusal to conform. The indie darling who cut his teeth in bingo halls didn't just bring talent, he brought a philosophy. He wasn't polished, scripted, or refined in the way the WWE machine demanded. He was unapologetically raw. That rawness didn't initially translate to opportunity. He was ridiculed, dismissed, sidelined, but he endured, and when the time finally came, when a live microphone was placed in his hand and the camera was on him, Punk did what no one expected. He burned the entire house down. That infamous pipe bomb in 2011 didn't just target Cena. It struck at the heart of the WWE system: the nepotism, the hypocrisy, the manufactured narratives. It challenged every falsehood fans had been force-fed. Punk wasn't simply speaking for himself. He was speaking for the audience, for the unheard, for every disillusioned soul watching from behind the barricade. What followed was a collision not just between two wrestlers, but between ideologies. Cena represented the company's chosen face, a man who had internalized the values WWE wanted to project. Punk, on the other hand, was chaos in motion, a disruptor challenging those very values with every match, every promo, every moment in the ring. Their battles weren't just contests of athleticism. They were philosophical debates playing out in physical form. And at Money in the Bank 2011, it culminated in an eruption that shook the very foundations of WWE. Punk leaving with the title into the Chicago night was more than a scripted twist. It felt like a real rebellion. For a moment, the audience believed that change was possible, that someone could speak truth to power and win. The fire that once defined him has become a flickering ember, occasionally flaring up but never fully reclaiming its former intensity. His acceptance of a match in Saudi Arabia, a place he had once derided with moral clarity, signals a capitulation that cuts deeper than any loss in the ring. It isn't just a change in booking, it's a transformation in identity. As they approach their final confrontation, everything that made their rivalry legendary has mutated. It's no longer about who's the best in the ring or who sells more merchandise. It's about authenticity, or the lack thereof. Cena now represents a strange sort of clarity, a villain who doesn't pretend to be anything else. Punk, once the embodiment of truth, now wrestles with his own self-betrayal. The man who coined voice of the voiceless has become part of the noise, a cog in the machine he once tried to destroy. And yet, in a twist of cruel irony, it is still Punk who fans hope will bring Cena down. Not because he is more righteous, but because he is all that's left. This isn't just a storyline, it's a commentary on what wrestling has become. The glitz, the polish, the empty slogans repeated on every broadcast. These are the symptoms of an industry that has lost its way. Punk once fought against it. Cena once embodied it. Now, they are both relics of a time when wrestling dared to be real. Their match at Night of Champions isn't just another main event. It is the final breath of an era, The crowd won't be cheering for the babyface or booing the heel. They'll be witnessing two shadows clashing in the dim light of memory, each trying to prove that they still matter, that their legacy hasn't turned to ash. In the end, perhaps that's the true tragedy of Punk and Cena. They were never supposed to become this. Punk was supposed to be the change agent, the revolutionary who refused to bow. Cena was supposed to be the eternal good guy, the symbol of everything wholesome about WWE. But time, fame, failure, and success all conspired to flip their arcs upside down. The rebel became the loyalist. The hero became the tyrant. The match that looms on the horizon is not just a showdown between two legends. It's a final chapter in a book that started with dreams and ended in disillusionment. The essence of this confrontation reaches far beyond what traditional sports entertainment has come to expect. For years, audiences were conditioned to view matches through clear dichotomies: hero versus villain, good versus evil, loyalty versus betrayal. But what unfolds between these two men in 2025 transcends those binaries. This is a story born from fatigue, disappointment, and transformation. The reactions from fans are no longer dictated by allegiances, but shaped by the realization that ideals have faded, replaced by disillusionment. CM Punk and John Cena are not merely characters in a long-standing feud. They are living metaphors for what happens when belief systems fracture under relentless pressure. As the final showdown approaches, there's a looming sense that something sacred has already been lost. CM Punk's voice, once defiant and untamed, now echoes through corporate microphones, diluted by the very alliances he used to scorn. He once refused to participate in spectacles that compromised his ethics. Now, he finds himself at the center of them, attempting to justify actions that once would have disgusted him. It's not just about wrestling in a controversial venue. It's about becoming indistinguishable from the machinery he condemned. That apology offered on foreign soil wasn't just a press gesture. It marked a symbolic surrender, a final detachment from the unfiltered voice fans once trusted. In contrast, Cena's transformation isn't hidden behind platitudes. He no longer smiles through uncomfortable truths or pretends to be above the politics he once served. His evolution into a darker, unapologetic presence feels genuine, not because it's righteous, but because it's complete. This version of Cena doesn't seek validation. He no longer pretends to be what fans want. He operates with cold precision, embracing the manipulation, the power, the influence, traits he once denied possessing. And yet, strangely, this honesty is what draws people in. The crowd responds not with admiration, but with reluctant respect. They recognize the monster, and in a world full of masks, at least this one doesn't hide its face. The symmetry is haunting. Punk entered WWE to challenge a system that ignored voices like his. Cena rose by becoming the embodiment of that very structure. Now, Cena represents the rebellion. Brutal, merciless, driven not by ideals but by the raw power of truth, unrestrained. Punk, meanwhile, has morphed into the very construct he fought. As their paths converge once more, it's no longer about settling a score. It's about confronting what time, exposure, and compromise have done to both of them. There's a moment fans will never forget. Money in the Bank. 2011, when Punk sat cross-legged on that stage and detonated a cultural bomb. It wasn't just a promo, it was a manifesto. Every syllable shook the confidence of an industry rooted in hierarchy and silence. But now, over a decade later, that same posture, that same defiance, has been mimicked by Cena. He's reclaimed the stance, reworded the fire, and directed it not at management, but at Punk himself. That reversal is both poetic and brutal. It signifies a transfer of power, not just within the narrative, but within the mythos of modern wrestling. In a field driven by storylines, most arcs are cyclical. Returns, betrayals, redemptions, all are expected. But this isn't a circle, it's a descent. Both men have spiraled in opposite directions, only to crash into each other again with their identities reversed. Punk, now representing what he once loathed, tries to hold on to fragments of authenticity. Cena, no longer chained to forced morality, lashes out with ferocity, dismantling the pedestal he once stood on. And the crowd, divided, jaded, emotionally drained, watches, not with chants of allegiance, but with a longing for what these two used to symbolize. When the bell rings at Night of Champions 2025, it won't just signal the start of a contest. It will mark the climax of a decade-long metamorphosis. Punk, standing across from Cena, won't just be facing an opponent. He'll be confronting the ghost of his own warnings. Cena, meanwhile, will be staring at the man who tried to stop him from becoming exactly what he now is. This isn't a rivalry anymore. It's a requiem. A requiem for truth, for passion, for authenticity. A requiem for professional wrestling as it once was, when it meant something more than hashtags and merchandise. As they lock eyes one last time, the audience won't just be watching a match. They'll be witnessing the end of an era, and maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something else. If Punk can't stop Cena, no one will. If Cena wins, it won't be a victory. It will be confirmation that the machine always wins in the end.